On our second day in Ubud, Bali, we had our first encounter with the Balinese police. We were stopped, interrogated, and had to pay a fine on the spot in cash.
We were going the wrong way down a one-way. I know that sounds pretty crazy. However, firstly, we had two apps telling us to take this route, Google Maps and Apple Maps. Secondly, there was a no one-way street sign. There was a no entry sign, but usually it's hard to tell, like the way they're angled, which road they're actually saying is a no entry. And number three is that when we first took the road, it wasn't really clear. There was a pretty good opening where it looked like it was a legitimate lane for us to go down, and there were other scooters taking that lane as well.
Go straight right here? Huh? I think we're lost.
As we got further down the road, we started to kind of realize that something wasn't right. It was getting more narrow and there was a lot more traffic coming towards us. Right about the time we started to slow down, the cop was just like right there in front of us on foot, and he just threw his hands up and was telling us, stop, stop, stop. The first thing I asked him was, what's the problem? He said, this is a one-way. And we just said, oh, we didn't know. He told us to turn the bike off. He asked for our license and registration, and he took the keys out of the bike. And that was probably the most aggressive thing that he did. I wouldn't say that we felt threatened, but we were definitely skeptical. So we handed him photocopies of our driver's license, and we weren't sure about the registration though. He said it's gonna be under the seat. So on the scooters, you can pop the seat, and there's usually a little compartment under there. So we popped that, and there was no registration in there. It turns out that this is something that if you're renting a scooter in Bali, you need to be checking, does it have papers? So with the key in his hand, he just turned around and said, follow me, and started walking down the street. And at this point was the height of not knowing what was gonna happen. We had no idea where we were even going, whether or not this guy was a real cop. We couldn't just turn around and leave because he had the scooter key. We walked up these steps and he just pulled out this book. He opened the book and he started pointing and showing all the offenses, driving the wrong way and then also not having papers. So he was pointing at each one of these offenses and it had a large number in the millions of rupiah. So at this point, we weren't even sure like what was happening, like what did he want us to do? And then he said, you're gonna have to go to court, you're gonna have to go to court. Break the rules, you gotta pay. I mean, I can just remember, that's all he kept saying, break the rules, you gotta pay. After several minutes of kind of going through this routine, he finally said, if you settle up with me now, you don't have to go to court. He starts out telling us that we each need to pay 400,000 rupiah, and then we're all settled, we can leave. So then Cooper pulls out 300,000 rupiah, he takes it and he says, okay, go, 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 go.
It turns out that this scenario is pretty common in Bali. Cops will often collect fines for themselves rather than writing the offender an official ticket. Many times tourists are specifically targeted. For example, we were riding down the road in a taxi one day and we passed a roadblock with a long line of tourists who were pulled over and getting checked for international driver's licenses. Many locals at the same time, however, continued to cruise by without being stopped. Locals aren't totally off the hook though, as our taxi driver informed us that he is sometimes stopped as well. If you read up on this online, you'll find many accounts of tourists claiming to have been stopped, sometimes for no apparent reason, and told that they'll have to pay large fines and appear in court, and after this intimidation routine is finished, the tourist will usually be told that they can avoid all of this by directly paying the officer on the spot. Although we were in the wrong by driving in the opposite direction down a one-way, the scenario of being intimidated with court dates and large million rupiah plus fines played out in the same manner that we've read about from others' accounts online. So for sure, if you're driving a scooter in Bali, a helmet, an international driver's license, and papers for the scooter are a must. Just make sure to do your own research to be as prepared as possible, and try not to go the opposite way down one-way streets if you can.
You may be wondering, is it possible to avoid the popo? Well,
One way is to avoid driving the scooters. The alternative is to take a taxi. Taxis are everywhere in Bali and they're affordable. So they're really a great option in terms of transportation. Help you keep a low profile. Low.